All right, go ahead and take it away, Troy.
Oh, well, great. Thanks, Aaron. And welcome everybody to our year-end update for Coffee and Climate. We're here with our Portland and South Portland Sustainability Office team. So there may be some new faces here. So why don't we do quick intros? And yeah, I'm the Sustainability Director here in Portland. And why don't we go ahead to Aaron, and then we'll do Katie after. Go ahead, Aaron.
Right. Hi, I'm Erin. I'm a Sustainability Associate with the City of Portland. Go ahead, Katie.
And I'm Katie Timms. I'm also a Sustainability Associate in City of Portland and kind of new to the gig. And I'll pass it over to Julie.
Hi, everybody. Julie Rosenbach, Sustainability Director in the City of South Portland. Looks like most of my team is here. Cash, maybe you can start.
Sure. Cashel Stewart, I'm the Sustainable Transportation Coordinator for the city. Pass it over to Susan.
Hey, I'm Susan. I'm the Sustainability Program Manager for the City of South Portland, and I'll pass it to Steve.
Hi all, thanks much. Steve Genovese. I'm a GP COG Resilience Corps Fellow stationed in the South Portland Sustainability Office for the coming year.
Great. So yeah, we're excited to have a good team with us this year, getting a lot of work done. So Julie and I will have an opportunity to kind of run through all the things we worked on this year. So and then we'll also certainly have hopefully time for questions and talking about things that might be coming up for next year. So I guess I'm supposed to share my screen now, so I will try to do that. Cool, everyone can see the slides, hope. Yeah, cool. All right, so again, if I can make them advanced. So you want to start, Julie? Why don't you jump in and you can go first?
Sure. Well, thanks, Troy. So as you guys may or may not know, but hopefully I think you know, our climate action plan has strategies in 4 key areas. And I think what we're going to go through is our progress in each of the 4 key areas, starting with buildings and energy. And you know, one of my favorite programs that we kicked off this year was Electrify Everything. As you know, maybe the main strategy of our climate action plan in order to get to climate neutrality is to electrify everything and then work on running the grid from renewable resources, which in Maine we have our renewable portfolio standard and a statewide goal to have our grid run on renewable electricity 80% by 2030 and 100% by 2050. So we took that goal and we said, great, how do we help each individual household adopt, energy efficient electric heating and cooling technology? And then, we have in South Portland, yard care, land care management ordinance. And we really wanted to target leaf blowers and lawnmowers because there's lots of drop-in replacements and those are big greenhouse gas emissions contributers. So
Troy, you want to go to the next slide real quick?
Oh, sure.
Thanks.
Why do we go to the next slide? We're not done with energy yet.
Well, that's what the next slide is.
Oh, you can. So you're seeing. You're
I see buildings and energy.
Me too. Yeah.
Okay, I'm behind.
Okay. Everyone else see buildings and energy? Katie did? Yeah. All right.
Oh, odd. So I'll just say real quick that in September 1, we launched our Electrify Everything program that gives households that earn up to 100% of area median income rebates on top of any existing rebates, including efficiency mean rebates. To date, our program has been going strong for a few months. We have already given out $36,000 to I think over 50 households. And we have plenty of money left to give out over the coming year as people book installers and start to install this technology. And the other piece of buildings and energy that I'm so delighted to report is that we finished a few major solar projects, including 2 new big projects on our landfill and a project on our community center. which so far bring our offset of municipal electricity to about 65% with these projects, and with the expectation of saving, I think we're going to save conservatively over $20 million over the life of these projects. So it's a win-win-win all the way around.
Great. Yeah, that's fantastic. It was really nice to see that progress come to fruition. You've been working on it for a really long time, Julie. So congratulations on getting that done. So here in Portland, we also ran our first iteration of Electrify Everything that launched last February. And we had kind of our thought with that first generation of the program was to create like a one-stop shop. So people who are interested in adopting heat pumps or adding solar to their homes or heat pump water heaters would have one opportunity to just call our office, and we would try to coordinate them to get get it associated with rebates and incentives. And also we had partnered with Revision Energy as our one-stop shop, as the vendor who could do all of the work in one fell swoop. And so it was kind of a pilot program just to see how that all worked. And I'd say that it went pretty well. We had our goal was to help at least 75 people do some sort of electrification in their homes, and we had over 100 people be able to participate, which we were really excited about. And so that laid the groundwork for our phase 2, which is similar to the South Portland program. We have our city council authorized $200,000 for local incentives, and so we're also going to be promoting e-bikes and additional weatherization. But our program has an income requirement of 80% of local media income. And right now we're working really hard to figure out how to apply that to work in apartment buildings, multi-tenant buildings. We know in Portland that well over 50% of people who live in Portland live in apartments, and many of the folks who qualify for the 80% of median income do live in apartments. So we're working closely with our finance department to create some rules and program parameters that will help us support renters. So that's something we're working on. And in terms of our solar energy front, we're part of a big solar consortium project with that ultimately will lead to about 70% of our city's energy coming from solar projects. And currently we have about 3 of our solar projects that are outside of the city coming online. We're expecting 4 or 5 more in the next several months. But again, as they all come online by sometime in 2024, we anticipate about 70% of our city electricity from solar. So we're making some progress there as well. So move on to waste reduction. Is hopefully waste reduction slide is showing. It is great. You want to go, Julie?
Sure. Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Sure. Waste reduction we have a lot of stuff that's in the works. But the thing to highlight is that our former resilience fellow kicked off a plastic-free July campaign, challenging people to stop using single-use plastics for the month of July, just to see how far people could get, and how much to sort of shine the spotlight on how much single-use plastic really is out there. And so it got a lot of attention and feedback from people. I think I failed on like day 1 just by going to the supermarket. And so just looking at how do we deal with single-use plastics moving forward.
And both of us have compost drop-off programs. So we have during this year we started with 5 drop-off spots, and we've now expanded to 8, and we keep adding additional collection carts because people love this program so much. And we still get calls from folks who are just discovering it, and really appreciate it. And it's been really effective at helping people divert their waste. I think it looks like we're collecting like 14 or 15 tons of organic material every month from the drop-off programs. And I also want to give a shout out to to our team who organized our first annual pumpkin cycle this fall. And we collected over 3,000 pounds of pumpkins between 9 and 12 on a Saturday morning. And it was a really fun event. We had a donut truck come and lots of kids, and that was really cool.
Troy, before we move on, I
Yeah.
just want to say that I think at the end of the presentation, we'll let you know what's upcoming in the waste reduction arena. We have a lot that's going on. And I want to give a shout out to Susan Parmalee, who is just started working with our office and is going to be taking the helm on all of our waste reduction efforts.
Cool. Great. So transportation, I think Cashel is going to take this one.
Sure. You will want to chime in with some Portland anecdotes, I'm sure. But so as most of us know, the biggest way for people to adopt EVs is to build out a network of chargers. And so that's one of the biggest ways our two cities can, help facilitate that and play a role. So very directly, both of our cities have signed agreements, and ours was with Revision Energy. At this point, it's a letter of intent, but we've been analyzing all of these city-owned properties throughout the city and are in the process of selecting sites. These are going to be mostly level 2, but there's going to be 36 of them spread really in just about every neighborhood in the city. We're focusing on overnight residential applications for renters. We're focusing on workplace applications, so locating near commercial areas where people work. And we'll see what happens. I'm sure when they go in, we'll find out all sorts of things about EV charging. It's still very, very new. And then another huge exciting thing we have to report is the EV charging infrastructure ordinance, which went into place this Tuesday, December 6th. So it's in place now. This ordinance requires new and fully reconstructed parking lots and garages or structures of 5 or more spaces to add some level of charging infrastructure. And the idea here is really to future-proof our parking lots when people are building them, to prevent expensive retrofits at a later date. I won't get into the details of the ordinance. Let me know if you have questions there, but the requirements are higher in residential and workplace settings again, and we spent a long time coming up with the details there to sort of price the numbers right for where we're putting charging, where we're requiring charging infrastructure to be placed. Let's see. Well, so top right there, we know that EV adoption isn't going to happen overnight, and as it is now, cars still idle, and we wanted to do something. So we came up with a compelling anti-idling campaign. We didn't want to do a ordinance or have to try to enforce this. In fact, we talked to the police and they were like, we're not going to be able to enforce this. So we went the direction of a public awareness campaign similar to Don't Litter, where we're just trying to get people to change their behavior around shared interest. And we came up with the catchy slogan of idling is foolish. And these signs are all around the city now. And we have 1 million stickers left if you want to ask me for a sticker and put one on your water bottle or something. But definitely pleased with how that came out, and we'll continue doing outreach there. And Bike Ped, we've been very active as well. A lot of traffic calming treatments around the city, doing little tactical urbanism projects. Julie mentioned our Electrify Everything program that offers rebates for electric bikes, which are really sweeping the area right now. I'm seeing them everywhere. I'm seeing 2 kids and groceries in tow on bikes. And that's really offering people a solution to a single occupancy vehicle, getting people out of their cars with a real option. But we're also working to build out and make better bikeways for people. And that's, you know, a big charge for us that we're working diligently on. And well, I'll let Troy talk about bike share.
Yeah.
Actually,
Pass it over to
Troy,
you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Troy,
Julie.
before we pass it over to Portland, I just have to say you got everyone that Cashel, you know, came in. He's responsible for eliminating all of the greenhouse gas emissions associated with transportation, and he's just been doing a great job. Each one of these is really impactful in and of itself, and I'm especially happy with our idling campaign, because I told Cashel, oh my God, if this is ever going to work, we need something that people can chuckle at and share with other people. And the amount of feedback that we have idling is foolish and we have idling is exhausting. And we got a huge amount of feedback where now when people idle, somebody will say, well, you know, idling is exhausting. And this is exactly the kind of campaign that we wanted, where people can chuckle at it, but call attention to the behavior and really change it. So just a great job to Cashel.
Yeah, no, it was very creative. I agree. So Cashel mentioned bike share. So we did in Portland launched the long-awaited bike share program. Is something that, you know, Portland staff have been thinking about for a long time, and, you know, tried it, you know, a few different times to make it work. And, you know, kudos to Bruce Hyman, who's our transportation planner in the planning department, leading that effort. And it was a great success, I think, for the you know, is only available for part of the summer, but the ridership was very strong. And by the end of the season, they had added you know, Tandem Mobility, who's the vendor, had added e-bikes to the fleet, and we're looking forward to seeing them come back in the spring and having a full spring, summer, and fall season to enjoy bike share. But it was off to a really good start, which we were excited about. As Cassie mentioned, we're definitely doing a lot with EV charging as well. We have an agreement with EV Go, and we're collaborating on 8 fast charging locations and 44 level 2s that we'll be distributing in neighborhood charging hubs. And we're excited to report that the first EV charging station is under construction. If you went to the Spring and High lot, you'll see a concrete pad and a bunch of equipment that's waiting for the spring to have the actual chargers installed and have them energized. But the neighborhood hubs at East End School and at Deering Oaks Park are installed. We're waiting for CMP to energize those. So those 2 locations should be running up fairly soon. And we also have some EV charging regulations for new development. We don't have an ordinance, but we're structured a little differently. We have a technical design manual, so people building projects have like a standard that our development review process enforces. So we have any location that has 5 or more parking spots needs to have at least 20% installed EV chargers. And we just made some amendments to that rule that will allow folks who, where it makes sense, that could negotiate having a fast charger for a certain number of level 2s. I mean, maybe there's a use case, and encourage maybe someone has a retail spot or a really parking lot that's accessible to folks that they want to have fast charging. So we opened a way for people to negotiate having fast chargers. And so we'll see how that works out. But definitely we want to encourage more fast chargers around as the increase of EVs in the fleet, in the the regional fleet increases. We're going to need more and more charging. As an EV driver myself, I'm finding more and more competition for the public charging infrastructure. So we're really excited to start building that out even more. So, and who's you can take this one, Julie? Go next.
Sure. Sometimes it's hard to go over the year in review because there's so much that's in the works now.
Right.
But yep, over this past year, there's 2 quite impactful things that we did. I'll start with the coastal flood inundation modeling. Both Portland and South Portland worked with the Maine Silver Jackets, which is a consortium of FEMA and NOAA and the Army Corps of Engineers and some other partners to develop a more dynamic flood model for Portland and South Portland and Damariscotta. What we've had is a great model, but people call it a bathtub model because it shows you sort of water in and water out. In the dynamic inundation modeling that we worked on doing is got sort of wave action, currents, winds, all of those things. So it's more exact, and it's, I think, the most forward-looking modeling that we have, although the state and the DOT is looking at doing something that's similar to this and potentially goes even further. But so this will give us even more information to make policy decisions, and plan for what we can expect in the future. On the land care side of things, South Portland has a pesticide and a fertilizer ordinances that's under our land care management ordinance that really looks at transitioning our landscape to organic soils. And one of the things we heard both from the environmentalists and the land care specialists was the big problem is when you build new development or you build a house, the soil is all compacted and, it doesn't recover from there and you have to keep putting inputs in. And so what we did was we added soil quality standards to new construction, anything over 2,000 square feet that is, it's going to be landscaped, and the provisions mandate that the soil is decompacted and that there's a 5% at least organic material in the topsoil.
Yeah. So we also have we updated our land care ordinance this year as well. So we adopted a prohibition on synthetic fertilizers and restrictions on the how people apply even organic fertilizers. It's similar to South Portland's ordinance, but again, the intent is to prevent nutrients from running off of our lawns and greenscaped places. If people over apply fertilizers, it ends up in Casco Bay and causes algal blooms and other problems. So Casco Bay being a super important part of our local economy, and just something we really love. We want to make sure we're protecting that, and how we take care of our property has a big impact on that. We don't want to see people like over applying fertilizer or putting nutrients onto paved surfaces where they will just instantly run off at the next time there's a rain event. So again, promoting better land care practices is an important way to protect our natural resources. And also the coastal flood inundation model, as Julie mentioned, it was we collaborated with the Silver Jackets for that model for Portland Harbor and both Portland and South Portland. We're currently actually using it. We're putting it to use as part of our climate resilience overlay zoning initiative. In fact, that we hired a consultant to begin drafting our ordinance language. We had a great meeting with them earlier this week, as a matter of fact, with our GIS team to introduce them to the flood modeling program and all the different tools they'll be able to use as they help us through the course of next year on developing the overlay zoning. But we can talk more about that when we get to the upcoming events. So move on to who's going to go first on this one. You want to go, Katie, or?
I can start us off on this one.
Okay.
So yeah, we held many different, I know in both cities, held many community engagement events and different tabling opportunities, but I'll start with our wayside picnics. Wayside food programs hosted these really great events throughout the summer at different community gardens around Portland, and they all happened to also be gardens that had food waste drop sites where people can drop off their food scraps for free, and they can be taken to AgriCycle and turned into energy. So we had a really great time, myself and our former Resilience Corps member, Courtney, just speaking with residents and talking about these drop site locations, and really just full circle conversations there. But it was really great. And then I'll let Katie talk about our other events.
Thanks, Erin. And yeah, community engagement, I think, is one of our favorite parts of the job. It's so much fun to get out there and host these types of events. I'll start with our most recent one, which was Pumpkin Cycle, which I think Troy mentioned earlier. It was just such a blast inviting families to chuck their pumpkins with our dump truck. And yeah, we collected over 3,000 pounds of pumpkins. And just I think people had a lot of fun doing it. I know I did. We also host events, again, communicating about food waste and why it's important to divert food waste, and all of the drop sites that we have that are free and accessible to residents. I also got to help plan National Drive Electric Week, which we coordinated with Revision Energy and Efficiency Maine, and recruited quite a few different people to drive their electric cars. We also had an electric truck, an electric fleet vehicle. I know Troy was driving folks all day long in his Kona. And so we had, I think, like 25 different electric vehicles where people could come and test drive and just ask questions to folks who actually drive them. And so it was a fantastic turnout. We had Secretary of State Shanna Bellows, who's an EV driver herself. That was a really fun event. And Parking Day, which was one of my first events on the job. And if you don't know about Parking Day, it's a global event where folks will repurpose a parking spot and we made ours into like a little park with the help of the Parks Department. And we had a park ranger, Liz. We also worked with Cumberland County Soil and Water. And they had a little demonstration too, talking to people about why it's important, or stormwater and how important our waters are. And it's really just a day where you can advocate for a greener, equitable street and talk to folks. And so we definitely had a lot of fun this year. There were plenty of other events and webinars, but these are some of the highlights. If you want to go to the next one.
Cool.
Yeah. And I'll speak a little bit about Mia. Mia is over in South Portland, and she writes in multiple different columns, one of them being Jambo Africa. I know she does a series in the Portland Press Herald too. What's it called?
Century.
Century. Thank you. But switching over to coffee and climate. So thank you all for coming to our 12th coffee and climate of the year. And we host them monthly on Fridays, and stay tuned for what 2023 looks like. I don't know if you want to speak on that, Erin.
Maybe we'll get to, yeah, go ahead, Erin.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this past year, just hosting the coffee and climates, I will say, I think we've just with our registration lists and people viewing the recordings after the fact, I think that we just had some really great presentations this year, and we're just so thankful to everybody that attended and also did the presentations themselves. I think it was a lot of learning, a lot of information, and a lot of engagement. It was really great.
I just want to add that so I'm sure I speak for Troy on this, that we have a great team of people now in our offices. And for so long, we were one people offices and we're scrambling to do everything. But just like Erin and Katie and Cashel and Mia and Steve and Susan all get together and talk about what's going to be our monthly topic for coffee and climate. And then we build all of our outreach and education around that. So we do in South Portland, like Katie said, articles every week. Mia does an article in the South Portland Century, the sustainability column. And then we bring it up to a statewide level and do a monthly article on Jambo Africa, and build in as much of the events and the engagement as we possibly can around the topic. And really, it's these guys do a great job, including putting this presentation together. So thank you.
100%. I love how everyone works so well together. Great. Good job. So sneak peek. You want to take a first stab, Julie?
Oh yeah, this is my favorite part. Apologies, this is my first time seeing this presentation. So as I mentioned, one of my favorite things about our One Climate Future plan is that all of our 67 strategies and the hundreds of action items that go with them are completely interconnected. And so the programming and the policies that we do, we look through everything. We touch base. Our team over the summer sat at Willard Beach for a while and said, okay, here's what we've accomplished out of all of these strategies. What's next on our plate? What makes logical sense, and what can we get to next? And how do we put different strategies together in a program that makes sense? So with everything, you know, we could probably just try to mandate all of these new things. You know, we need to get off fossil fuels. We need to change our transportation. We need to do all of this stuff. But our approach is really sort of an incentive. It's a sort of a push and pull approach of putting things together to say, hey, residents, we want you to adopt all electric technology. And now we're going to help you get there through Electrify Everything. Hey, everybody, we want you to get out of your cars, but we're not just going to tell you to do that. We're going to put programs and policies together to help you transition. So a lot of what we were working on in 2022 is going to come to fruition in 2023. We got 7 grants so far in 2023, including a grant to develop a South Portland electric tool library. I'm so excited to have this, to create this and have this happen. So it's going to happen near our swap shop. We're putting another small building up, and it's going to be all electric tools that people can borrow. So if you have gas-powered Landcare tools and you aren't sure about electric technology, you can come check one out and borrow it and see how it works. If you don't want to own your own, you can come and check one out and just use it. And we got a grant from the DEP to kick this off and start it and build our tool library. So that's coming up in 2023. We've also been working on, South Portland does not have a pay-as-you-throw program. Our biggest challenge is that our waste and recycling program works really well. There aren't any problems with it, but we know we can do better in terms of our recycling rate. We also have, you know, the food waste collection sites, and we have so much interest in those. What we are aiming to do in 2023 is put a proposal in front of our council to adopt pay-as-you-throw program and pair curbside food waste collection with it. So that's going to be another big thing that we broach. We also have a workshop in March to propose a gas-powered mower and blower ban. It would probably be something that's phased in, but really there are electric options that are so much better, less noisy, less polluting. And so we want to urge people in that direction. Oh, the other big project that we got 4 different grants for, and we have 8 different project partners, is our 100 Resilient Yards project that we're going to kick off in 2023. You know, we have our pesticide and our fertilizer ordinances, and those are great because they set the standards for what we'd like to make our community be based on, which is resilient living soils that really are the foundation for all of the ecology that we would like to see. So again, we mandated no use of of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides, but now we're going to help people get to what it means to have a resilient yard. And so the project that we've put together is going to offer 100 people who apply to be part of the project 1 hour of technical assessment, including soil samples, and we're bringing in some experts to help with recommendations. So if you have a problem, if you have grubs, if you have waterlogged soil, whatever it is, they will come in and they will give you a recommendation. And then we're going to follow up with 1 hour of volunteers will come in and follow up and help these properties adopt the recommendations with a resource package. So we're going to give out, we have 5 outcomes we're going to push people towards and let them choose from. And one is, if you still want a lawn, making it an organic lawn. a rain garden, a pollinator garden, a vegetable garden, or rewilding. And we're going to help people get to that. And then we're going to have a big outreach process to say, to let people know wider than these 100 yards. And so I think people are going to be really excited because as we've over the years done lots of education and outreach and printed materials and workshops, I think people are on board. They're a little bit workshop fatigued. And the last Coffee and Climate we had on this topic, people were so engaged. They asked great questions. And almost to a T, all of them said, but if in my yard, I just have this question, I just have this, curiosity. And so hopefully this will bring some expertise right to people's yards and help people showcase, and then they can talk to their neighbors and really get to more resilient yard care than we've had over the past 50 years.
Cool. Really exciting. We're looking forward to seeing how that comes together, Julie. It's really cool. So we have some exciting things coming up in 2023 as well here in Portland. One of the things I'm actually really most excited about is working on our climate resilience overlay zoning. So in One Climate Future, we talked about, there was one of the strategies is develop new zoning overlays to make sure that as we build out the city in the future, that that we take into account vulnerabilities to from climate change, and that whether that be rising seas and more increased intense rainstorms with lots of water, higher heat. And so every part of the city has a different vulnerability. So certainly if you're close to the water's edge, your property could be impacted by sea level rise or storm surges. But as you move away from the coastline, properties still can be impacted if there's a heavy rainfall. How are we managing stormwater on site? Our properties higher in elevation, discharging stormwater into lower elevation parts of the city, compounding problems they may already be having. So again, I mentioned earlier, we've begun meeting with our consulting team and our planning department to start, doing the legwork to get the program together. But throughout the course of 2023, we'll be having opportunities for public engagement with the community to talk about what this type of overlay means and how we can increase standards to improve the safety of residents in the future and make sure that our built environment is up to snuff when it comes to dealing with climate change. And we're thinking about the city kind of as an organic whole. So every part of the city, we imagine potentially like 3 different overlay zones depending on the vulnerability. But it's going to be a really important conversation. And I was like a little concerned this would take some time to get off the ground, but I'm really pleased our planning department is excited to work on this as well, and going to be a great collaboration with our consulting team and our planning department. So stay tuned for that. Another sort of like built environment thing we're working on, and we should have adopted in 2023, is our bird safe ordinance. So we've been working with Maine Audubon, Portland Society for Architecture, and our planning department on regulations to ensure that new buildings are safe for birds. We find a lot of birds are killed as they migrate north and south in the spring and the fall by flying into buildings with, glass is the primary cause, but there's other design elements in buildings that are dangerous for birds. And so birds have enough problems without impact being, trying to think they're flying to safety and running into glass and being killed. So that's really excited to be working on that. In fact, we have a meeting later today to talk more with our planning department about the different ways we might put that together. But look for that in 2023. Again, look for more charging. We should have 8 DC fast chargers installed by the end of 2023, as well as a number more of our neighborhood charging hubs. So we're excited to bring that. And yeah, we're expanding our food waste program. We have a grant from the DEP to do more education outreach. We're planning to translate more of our materials into more languages, so everyone in the community is able to learn more about how to properly handle food waste. And I wanted to quick shout out to stay tuned. We are planning to launch what I think is going to be a really interesting program based in neighborhoods and really engaging neighborhood associations. So stay tuned for announcements about that later on. That'll just be a kind of a sneak peek. But Aaron or Katie, you want to talk about some changes to coffee and climates and some things we might look for later in 2023?
Right. Yeah. Actually, if you go to the next slide, we have
Okay.
our
There we
layout
go.
for 2023 coffee and climates. We really were thinking about, expanding what our topics were going to be about and trying to make a plan for the entire year of 2023. So far, we have a couple presenters already on board to have some really good conversations on these topics listed here. And then in the summer, we would like to have an in-person summer series, meaning, it might not be at 9 a.m. on Fridays, but stay tuned. But we're excited to be able to have some more conversations and, just widen our reach for coffee and climate also.
So it sounds like potentially we might have some events in fun locations. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we have some are TBD, but I think at least one we'd love to have an event at the Portland Museum of Art, and they're really on board. That would be an in-person event. I think it's June. So we're really excited about that. They have a lot of stuff going on and some really good we had some really great conversations with them. So we're really excited about that. And then, yeah, the other ones are still up in the air on where they would be held, but we're really excited to possibly have a few, maybe 3 in person in the summer. So very exciting.
Yeah, taking coffee and climate to the next level. So great job. I was excited to see that. That's going to be fun, really fun. So I think that is our last slide. So definitely stay in touch with our offices through oneclimatefuture.org. We have our newsletter, and then we both of our offices have pretty robust Instagram pages. So please give a follow to Instagram. So that's our slides. I'm going to stop sharing, and hopefully there's some conversation. Thank you, everybody, for paying attention for 45 minutes. It looks like we do have at least one question. Bill.
Thank you, Troy. And really great work. I like the coordination between Portland and South Portland. But I think 2023 needs to be a step forward year in reducing our greenhouse gases. In One Climate Future in 2023, there is a solar proliferation study that is planned to be started. I'd like to hear what you and Julie plan for that, what the schedule on that is.
So yeah, we're definitely thinking about solar. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities with the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. That's going to make solar a lot more affordable for both cities, nonprofits, as well as the private sector. So, I think we need to see what the offerings are. The rules are still being put together, but I think that's going to be a foundational piece of what we can do to describe how people can cost effectively do solar. Rooftop solar is going to be more affordable for people. As you know, they extended the tax credit for at least 10 more years, which will be, so we're going to, have to take some time and build outreach and strategy around that amazing opportunity and funding that's going to be available. So that's, that wasn't available before. So now it is. So that's great.
There's the IRA, but there's also PACE coming along.
Yep.
That's something that you and Julie worked on. I think
Absolutely.
that's an opportunity, and maybe some of those coffee and climates should be devoted to some of those issues. I guess, Portland and South Portland have a lot of roofs on their municipal buildings. Certainly the schools can do a better job. And I guess I'd like to see some effort put into analyzing that, coming up with a conceptual design and some contracts for some solar panels on our school roofs.
Yep, and other buildings too. So.
Yep. I just want to add that we actually got money in this year's CIP to do a solar proliferation study, just a small amount of money to see how we can help make it easier to put solar on residential and commercial roofs in South Portland. Our new school has solar on the roof. At this point, as you know, green fields are the cheapest way to put solar in, then landfills, then roofs. And so I think, I won't speak for Troy on this, but when we looked at putting solar in our city, we did an RFP for people and we said, here are all the sites that you could potentially do solar. We added a number of municipal roofs, our landfill, and we had one green space, but it ended up not qualifying. And so we put solar on the community center roof and on our landfill. It was the most cost-effective way to do it. And we are, I mentioned our solar projects that we have so far got us to 65%. Well, we're going to be at over 80% when our offsite project comes online. And there needs to be a little bit of buffering. So we're at capacity in terms of how much of our electricity we can offset with solar. But as we move forward to electrify our buildings and electrify our fleets, there'll be more capacity, and we'll look at things then as well.
And so one thing that we're also working on, Phil, internally is how to streamline the permitting process for solar projects in the city. It's like, that's one of, talking to installers, that's definitely a bottleneck, is how the process of getting a rooftop solar project approved is very cumbersome. So one of our goals is to try to see if we can figure out how to make that go more smoothly, and that will reduce the cost both for the installer as well as the customer. So that's definitely a big part of this strategy, is make it easier to do.
Yeah, all I'm saying is that those were all great 2023 projects.
Yep.
But really not a big significant cut on our greenhouse gas emissions as some of these other programs that are coming along that I'd like to see the sustainability office in both cities concentrate on.
Sure. Good point. How about any other questions from, or comments or ideas from anyone in the audience? I'm not seeing any hands.
Bill, we could go back to you
We can go
again.
back.
I
Bill
just
always
want
a
to
good
say
question,
that, Bill, I mean, it was a good question about rooftop solar. I just want to let you guys know that the things that we highlighted in this are some of the great programs and policies we've done or are solidly in the works, but Troy and I are working on, and our team are working on so many things that we couldn't possibly go over them all. So yeah, keep the questions coming.
Well, you
Bill?
know, Jennifer, we'll go to
Yeah.
Jennifer and so we can come back to Bill.
Hi, thanks. I'm sorry I don't have my video on, but
That's okay.
I'm on the islands and we have pretty tenuous internet connection, so it helps to leave it off. I was just wondering how long it takes you folks to convert this and get it onto the YouTube website. I know that there are people that wanted to be here today from this island that weren't able to make it, and I wanted to let them know when they could tune in.
Yeah.
Katie or Aaron? Yeah.
Yeah, we're able to get it on there maybe within like 2 hours after this ends. So we'll get it on there as soon as possible today, probably by noon at least.
Oh, good.
Thank you very much.
So Bill, you have another question.
Yeah, sorry to double dip here.
That's okay.
Speaking of idling, I've noticed over the last 5 years or so, my idling has come up. Not so much that I'm sitting in traffic, but I'm sitting at traffic lights. There are more traffic lights where I'm sitting, there's nobody around, and I'm sitting there for 5 minutes, literally. What is, and maybe South Portland, maybe Cashel has figured this out on the southern side of the river there, but what is going on? Is there a procedure to say, hey, does this traffic light really make sense?
So there is definitely, in some cases, there's state regulations and like the traffic code that would suggest traffic lights at certain locations. And I'm certainly not an expert on traffic rules. You have to have Jeremiah join us on that one. But certainly some of the work I've done on traffic signals is that the typical traffic signal is not very smart. They typically are timer based and they get programmed based on what someone doing an analysis suggests is the traffic flow, and they try to like make their best guess about when the lights should change. So we've been in Portland, we've been working on trying to do smarter traffic signals. So we've got them installed in a few different quarters, but it's still the vast majority of traffic signals are not are typical, more of the old school. If you're, Forest Avenue and Franklin Street have the most intelligent signals that use sensors along the traffic corridor to provide some information to the signals to transition. But it's still variable depending on traffic flow, and if the traffic is very heavy and the intersection is really at its capacity, there's really not much it can do to help. So, I think the strategy is to reduce the number of vehicles on the road through promoting transit and cycling and walking. Ultimately, is the long-term goal. But it's a yeah. Go ahead, Cash.
The old school chargers obviously were the only option forever, and so you can imagine we've just been chipping away at bringing in those smart signals, but costs a lot of money, and a lot of it's underground, and it's it's like wiring, and it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars in some scenarios. So that's why it's happening slow. And I know our city is looking at linking signals. So once you have the smart technology, you can sync up signals so that they're even smarter in that way for corridors. And I know it was called the Smart Corridor Study, but it runs from Morrill's Corner down Forest, up High and State, over the bridge, and then down Broadway. That is our focus, between Portland and South Portland, where they're emphasizing better signals in the next few years anyway. As far as getting rid of signals, we get more requests to add signals, as you can imagine. But anytime there's any question like that, DOT can come in and do an audit, and it's pretty much they'll do a turning movement count to see how many cars are coming through there from each direction, which way they're turning. And they use those audits to add in, a left green arrow, or, a right lane, or a shared through right lane, things like that. They're going to look at all of those things. And in some scenarios, if the traffic is low volume enough, they can take away signals, but generally that's not going to be the case.
They don't like doing that.
It's going to meet whatever their criteria is, and that criteria is set by like FHWA at the federal level, and DOT just administers it here. So there's a lot of rules around it, but I suppose it's worth a try. If there's one in particular, you could reach out to your regional DOT cohort. So.
Or if
Yeah,
it's
I'm
or
just
local.
thinking going to yellow flash earlier than typically.
Oh, you mean in the evening, like
Yeah.
like at night? Yeah.
Right.
Our public works director was talking about that recently. For some reason, the whole state is moving away from that and towards the smart signals. But once you have the smart signals, that won't really be as much of an issue. It might have been safety related why they got rid of the blinking yellow, blinking red. I always liked it, but some reason they're moving away from it.
Cool.
Thank you.
Do you have Jennifer? Do you have another question, or is hand still up from last time?
Sorry, I don't have another question.
Okay, great. So Bill, also, if you wanted to have a conversation in Portland, I would suggest you talk to Jeremiah Bartlett in Public Works, as our transportation engineer, very knowledgeable, and be happy to share some thoughts about that, I'm sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so cool. Any final thoughts, Julie? We're getting pretty close to 10 o'clock, so.
No, thanks for being here. I feel like we're plowing along, trying to match our pace with the urgency of climate change and the amount of change that the community can take at one point. And I'm really excited about all the projects and programs, and I always love to hear from everybody with other ideas.
Yeah, and I agree. It's been, I really love being able to work together with our colleagues in South Portland. I think it's very synergistic. We get a lot more done by, kind of keeping in touch and organizing our strategies to be, compatible. I think it's our goal in joining forces for One Climate Future was exactly to do that, to show that regional collaboration can be effective and is important. And neither of us are going to solve climate change on our own. We all need to work together as local communities, as state and federal government. And thanks to Senator King's office, Gail, for joining us. We certainly need, we appreciate all the work the senator has been doing to promote the great programs that we need to make this all work. And we're just really excited for next year. Thanks for your support and for people who come to these events and learn what we're doing and ask questions. We really appreciate it. And stay tuned for some great events coming up next year. Thanks to the team for putting those together. And we look forward to chatting with you again soon. So have a great holiday too, if we don't see you. So bye.